Jacob Weber. I'm presenting my senior seminar project from McKendree University. It's a computer science major. I am presenting from Smithton, Illinois, United States of America. This is my project, Hello Worlds. It is a Unity engine project, which uses a few concepts from later computer science courses. Most notably, memory placement algorithms used in operating systems, and the graph data structure. Here we see a diagram representing a few blocks of memory with processes placed into them, the processes being shown in blue. They don't always fit perfectly, and it's the job of the memory placement algorithms to place the processes based on whatever criteria they have. First fit just places it in the first place it goes into. Next fit puts it into the first place after the last placement, and best fit tries to find the closest in size to the process. Graphs show connections between objects or nodes through edges. So the nodes here would be represented as circles and the edges as lines. What this project does is that it generates a group of nodes dynamically, and then it puts them in a graph, connects them, and each of those is running the memory management algorithms. So we can switch which one we're using. We can switch to the next fit or best fit. We're generating resources, and we can use those to put processes in the form of shifts into them, which will be made over time. And then we can transfer those shifts to neighbor nodes that are connected in the graph. Here we see I transfer to colony shifts, which quickly took over this node and made it blue. And the AI, which is red, is also doing this and taking over nodes of its own. If I let it alone, eventually it would take over the entire thing. See, it already took over mine. And if we just run for a few more seconds, eventually it'll take over everything. And that was with a graph size of 5. Let's try running it at 7 to see it with 7 nodes. And here we see 7 different nodes in a more complicated graph. And if I just let this run on its own, eventually the AI will also take over this one. Now, let's discuss the major components of this. So obviously I have the UI and the nodes, and but since these nodes are dynamically generated, it's hard to get them to communicate with the UI. But I do have a game manager object. The game manager runs both the UI and it generates the nodes. Since the game manager is generating the nodes, it's easy to form connections between it and the nodes. So what I do is while the nodes are doing things, they will send info to the game manager, which will then, on its own, update the UI. So there's a pipeline of processes at work, because to get around the fact that this is dynamically generated, and that's not always very convenient when it comes to working in Unity. So here we see all the nodes have been taken over by the AI, and it has effectively won. So a graph is shown by a 2D array. In this case, it is in this case, the size of the array is the number of nodes by the number of nodes. So here we have a graph size of 7, which means there are 7 nodes, so a 7 by 7 graph. Each row and column represents the corresponding node. So for example, if we look at row 1, column 2, if that column is true, then there is a connection between nodes 1 and 2. If it's false, there is no connection, and I'm dynamically generating that, as you saw while I was running the project. Each of these and that is basically the project in its entirety. The game, it can only go up to 7 nodes, or I believe it could go up to 8. Let's see if it can. There is a limit due to the data structures I'm using to organize them. Eventually it would break and just never stop going. But as you can see, it can run 8. And eventually the AI will again take over all this, but let's try to compete with it a little. See what I can do. Now, if I can't place a process immediately into one of these blocks, it will go in waiting. Each block can hold up to 2 processes, but there's a limited number of space, so if the processes are too big, I won't be able to put them in. And it looks like I'm too slow. And the AI is gonna win again. Yeah. Yep. AI got me. And so that is my project Hello World. For those of you not in on the joke, Hello World is one of the first things you print to the screen when you're learning to program computers. And I call it Hello World because I thought each of these nodes looked like a little planet or a world. Thank you for watching.